So, domain expansions are the most iconic part of JJK, and today we're theorizing what it would look like if they belonged to actual people from history. Imagine Einstein having a domain where he could freely manipulate wormholes, or Obama having one based on his most famous campaign slogan. Today, we'll be explaining these ideas and a couple others, and by the end, you can let me know if they were accurate to Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, so the first person on this list is Lionel Messi, who's widely considered to be the best football player of all time. On a personal level, as an Arsenal fan, I grew up watching Messi destroy my own team on multiple different occasions, and since then, he went on to complete the entire sport by winning the World Cup. For that reason, his domain expansion is called the World's Game, and the way I describe it is that it's a domain with a huge reward, but also a really high risk to the user. As you can see, the environment for the domain is just an empty football stadium in which Messi forces you to take part in a penalty shootout. The way it works is that the person who's trapped inside this space, they're forced to become the goalkeeper, hence why Yuji has these green gloves, and basically from that point on, Messi gets to take 5 penalties. With each penalty that he scores, the goal itself gets physically bigger, and of course, if the goal gets bigger, then it increases his odds of scoring the next one. If Messi can score all 5 penalties without any of them being missed or any of them being saved, then his opponent will die, and that is literally it. They will die if he scores every single penalty. However, on the flip side, if you can save just one of the penalties, then his entire domain will collapse. So it's a very high risk domain. If he misses one, then it's over. His domain collapses. Obviously, he'll have curse technique burnout and other things like that. So it is literally a case of if you miss, then you've lost. But if you score every time, then your opponent dies. That's why I said it was a high risk, high reward type thing, because the reward is huge. You know, it's a guaranteed kill. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool idea. And it was kind of inspired a little bit by Higuruma and Hikari, because, you know, obviously Higuruma has the rule in his domain where there's no violence, you know, violence is not allowed, and that applies to this one as well. You're not allowed to fight Messi. All you can do is take part and try and save the penalties. Anyway, next up we have Barack Obama, who was the 44th president of the United States, and the name of his domain is Yes We Can. Now, the inspiration behind this is so obvious. You guys, if you're old enough, you know that Yes We Can was his main slogan. He had a few slogans. He had like hope, change, but Yes We Can is the one that everyone knew, is the one that he said most often, I think. And so that was the starting point for this idea. When we think about what it means, when you say, yes, we can, you know, it's not just him. He's getting other people in to help him accomplish a certain goal. And so the idea for the domain was that Obama, when he says the words, yes, we can, he summons an endless stream of just mini Obama Shikigami. Sorry, okay, wait. He summons a stream of endless Shikigami, and they each have explosions in their hands. So think about Bakugo, for example. He can emit the explosions from his hand. The mini Obamas can do that as well, and that is the sure hit effect. You might be wondering though, why is their power explosions? Well, if you're a person who lives in this world, then you know America loves to bomb things, so I figured the mini Obamas could blow up whoever's inside. But of course, there is more to this domain. What I mean by this is that there's one thing Obama can do to overwhelm his opponents even more. But before we get into that, we need to explain the weakness of this domain. For context, this domain was partly inspired by Dagon, who obviously has the endless stream of Shikigami, and as we saw in Season 2, there are ways that you can survive this. With anti-domain techniques like Falling Blossom Emotion or Simple Domain, you can withstand the Shikigami for a while, and so what I was thinking is that Obama would have a specific cursed chant, alright? So cursed chants are like certain things that you say to increase the strength of your cursed energy. And so what I was thinking was that in this domain, Obama would have to say, yes, we can 8 times. And the reason it's 8 times is because of the amount of years he was president. And so if he says the curse chant 8 times, then the explosions of his mini Obamas upgrade to a nuclear explosion. So just to recap the entire thing, Obama's domain is called Yes We Can, and when he opens it, the environment is the Oval Office. Inside this space, if he says his famous campaign slogan, yes we can, then it summons a stream of Obama Shikigami. Now, these mini Obamas have explosions in their hands for reasons that we mentioned earlier, and these explosions are the guaranteed sure hit of the domain. If they work, then they'll likely blow the opponent up and just kill them, but if the opponent has like an anti-domain technique, then there is something else Obama can do. In this situation, Obama would say a specific curse chant, which is "yes we can," and he would say that 8 times. By saying "yes we can" 8 separate times, it upgrades the strength of the blast from being normal explosions to nuclear explosions. It goes without saying that Obama himself would be safe inside the domain when this happens, but for anyone else inside the space, they are getting just obliterated by a nuclear explosion, and there's nothing else they can do really. Unless you are a Sukuna level threat, you're probably gonna die from this. Moving on, the next person on this list is Albert Einstein, who's probably the most famous scientist in history. Einstein is largely remembered for his theories about gravity and the universe, and also for his famous equation E=mc². To understand his domain, I wanted to briefly talk about the concept of an Einstein-Rosen bridge, also known as a wormhole. Theoretically, a wormhole is a structure that connects 2 very distant points in space, and it was explained really well in the movie Interstellar. The basic idea is that the wormhole bends space in a certain way in order to create a tunnel between one distant point of the universe and another. There are also theories that if wormholes do exist, that they might actually connect to other universes, just completely separate from our own. And so yeah, the idea is very popular in science fiction, and it's something that is technically possible based on Einstein's work. Because of this, the name for his domain expansion is the equation, and it has 2 main benefits. The first major benefit is that inside this space, Einstein can generate wormholes at will. So for example, he can step into one location and emerge somewhere else, and he can do it an infinite amount of times. 1 second he might be behind you, the next second he might be in front of you, and this power makes it very difficult to attack him. To make things even better, the wormholes don't have to teleport his whole body. So for example, he can teleport specific body parts, whether that's a fist, whether that's a leg, and the great thing about this is, it means he never has to get close to his opponent. In theory, Einstein could just keep his distance the entire time while launching a random series of punches from just all these different angles. You'll never know where it's coming from because, unless you can read his mind, then you just don't know where he's going to launch it from. I should point out though that this is not the guaranteed hit of the domain, it's just something that Einstein can do when he's in this space, but in terms of guaranteed hit, that is something completely different. This is what brings us to the second benefit of the domain, which is called time dilation. Time dilation is the domain's sure hit effect, and it means that time moves slower for anyone who's not Einstein. For every 10 seconds that passes for Einstein, only 3 seconds passes for his victims. This leaves them wide open for any attack that Einstein wants to do, because their perception of reality is lagging behind what's actually happening. In this example, time is moving so slowly for Megumi that he thinks Einstein is still in front of him because that's the last thing that he sees, but in reality, Einstein had already moved behind him. Like I said, everything that Megumi is seeing is lagging behind what's actually happening, and the only time that time moves normally for him is when Einstein makes contact. That part of the idea was inspired by Gojo's domain, seeing as, everyone inside the space gets flooded with information unless they're making physical contact with him. I thought it would be interesting if Einstein had the same deal, because what it means is that Megumi sees time slowly until the moment he gets punched, and for that split second, he's able to see reality normally. The problem for Fushiguro is that the second that Einstein's fist leaves his face, the world will basically go back to being in slow motion. It's hard to explain just how confusing that would be. I say the only way you can survive this domain is if you open your own domain before things get too serious. So yeah, I think it's, if it was real, this would be one of the strongest domains because it has no real weaknesses and his opponents are helpless. They can't do anything unless they can counter it with their own domains. Lastly, the final domain for this video is actually the most simple, and it belongs to Henry VIII. Henry VIII is probably the most famous English king. Let me know in the comments if you know who he is or if you've heard of him before. But essentially he had 6 wives, he beheaded 2 of them because they couldn't give him a son. He also executed tens of thousands of people during the time he was in charge, and he also created his own church. So yeah, he's a pretty interesting character, and he's the one that, in the UK, he's the one that you're taught about the most. He's the one that we know the most about. Because he was quite a ruthless person who was willing to kill anyone who remotely stood in his way, I call this domain Mad King's Guillotine. As you can see, it's a pretty dark space with the Grim Reaper standing behind him, and I felt this imagery was pretty appropriate given that he killed so many people. Considering that Henry beheaded 2 of his own wives, I figured that the sure hit effect could be that axes just start flying at you from multiple different directions. If this was real, if this actually happened, Panda would be screwed because he has no domain to counter it with, he has no anti-domain technique, and so the axes would just cut straight through him and likely they would destroy his cause. I'm going to be pretty honest, there isn't much else to this domain. It is just a very simple one that tries to behead you as soon as it opens, and that is basically the entire power. It's just axes coming from every direction. Before we end the video, there are 3 things I wanted to say. The first is that if you have ideas for a domain for a real person, then let me know in the comments down below. But the person has to be real, whether they're dead or alive. Doesn't really matter. As long as they're real, I want to see that because it was fun doing this and I want to see what you guys come up with. The second thing is that this video was actually meant to be an April Fool's joke, but I figured, it was just too funny. I just wanted to do it a lot sooner. The third thing I wanted to say is that I just want to thank you guys for having a good 2025 on the channel. It was a really great year filled with brand new content for shows that are not anime, and also we just had lots of fun, especially with Jujutsu Kaisen, with Attack on Titan, The Next Generation Part 3, something that people have been asking me for ages, so I'm glad we did that. I'm glad, yeah, it's just a really great year, honestly. So I want to thank you for all your support, all the comments, all the likes, and in 2026, hopefully we continue with the same momentum. So yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching, and until the next one, peace out.